Hello and welcome back to another episode of Focus on K-12, EdTech and the Education Experience. I'm your host, Doug Konopelko, Education Strategist at CDWG. Today, I talk to two kindergarten teachers, Christine Pinto and Jessica Twomey, one in California and one in New Jersey. We talk about their unlikely partnership and collaboration, as well as the book that they wrote together, Innovating Play, that talks about EdTech integration in those early grades and how we need to keep that focus on the students, on their experiences, and on the play. Let's dive in.
I am Christine Pinto, and I'm here with my collaborating teacher partner, Jessica Twomey. We both teach kindergarten on opposite sides of the country. Our classes connect on a daily, year-long basis through our rituals and special projects. We highlight a lot about our collaboration in our Innovating Playbook.
Got it. So anytime we've got a partnership episode like this, right, we've got to start with, how did two kindergarten teachers that are literally at opposite ends of the country start working together? And then what does that partnership look like?
Sure. So back in 2016, 2017, I was moderating the Gap for Littles chat on Twitter, and Jessica would jump in and participate. And one year, the 4th of July landed on a Twitter chat day, and who wants to show up on the 4th of July for a chat? So I hosted a week-long slow chat on Flipgrid. It was through that experience where I was able to hear Jessica articulate her ideas with more detail, since there wasn't a character limit like there is on Twitter. And I wanted in on what she was talking about and doing in her classroom. And we both had posted about collaborative opportunities for our classes, invitations to play, if you will. And that was our launching pad to do more together. So Gap for Littles and Innovating Play joined forces. So our partnership has included lesson planning together, moderating Flipgrid and Twitter chats, blogging, presenting, and writing a book together.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. So what does that, really look like on the day-to-day?
So the day-to-day, well, with our collaboration, one of our rituals is weather reporting, for example. So my kids will record a weather video and, it is sunny and warm in California. What's the weather in New Jersey? Jessica's kids share a video. Depending on what time of the year it is, they experience actual seasons. So that's something special that they get to give to us. And so obviously this is asynchronously happening. This is happening over Flipgrid. Her kids make a video back to my kids. That is just one example of how our kids are able to connect every day. Jessica, do you want to chime in on anything with that part? Like with projects or anything that we go into with that?
Well, what happens between our classes is that a lot of our work is based on the routines and rituals that we create between our kids that happen on a daily basis. And then from those rituals, we're able to almost develop an emergent curriculum that comes directly from the children. We notice things with them, we wonder about things together, and then we build bigger experiences from that. And I think we'll have a chance in a moment, I think, to share some more detail about what some of those experiences look like.
Great. So Christine, you mentioned that you had hosted the Gap for Littles chat. You had written a book about using Google Apps with primary students. And then you two, as you've mentioned, and I'm holding, have the book out there called Innovating Play. So what's the basis for this book, for Innovating Play?
Do you want me to talk on that one, Christine? Or
go for it.
Christine's first book is really focused on believing in what children can do with technology. So she set the stage for everybody to say, you know what, they can absolutely do it. And here's how. When Christine and I started working together, we started imagining what context that comes in so that they're not isolated tech pieces and just saying, oh, they can do it. They did it. Now, why are they going to do it? And what's that going to look like within the learning experiences and within play experiences for kids? So our book introduces the Innovating Play cycle, which is just the cycle that we noticed happened between our classes together and individually as well. It starts with that point of connection, whether it's connection to content or connection to each other. We wonder together, we develop curiosities. from that experience, as I talked about before, we develop some kind of play or learning strategies or bigger project that we enjoy together. And then we have reflection time and we focus on our discoveries, and that leads to new points of connection. So the Innovating Playbook really gives context to what kids can do. And that comes through, like I said before, the routines and rituals and that emergent curriculum. And it also happens in individual classrooms as well as the collaboration that we have between our classrooms. And I think what's really special about that collaborative piece being a consistent collaboration is that it's what creates the foundation that represents the humanity and the relationships behind the technology. So there's a big social emotional piece that's happening within the context of tech and within the context of authentic childhood experiences.
I think when people talk about using technology, especially with young students, right? You're both kindergarten teachers. They have this fear that the technology is going to take over the work, become the focus of the work. So how do you meaningfully integrate tech while protecting that childhood play aspect of the learning?
I think that's the one thing that we try hardest to stay very true to, because really the key to using tech with young children is to place the experience at the forefront. And we always consider what the learning goal is first and the learning experience that we want to provide before we even decide what tech tool we're going to use or whether tech is even necessary. There have been times that we've sort of developed an experience together with the hope of getting a tech piece between us. And then we've realized, wait a minute, this is not a place for it. We need to put that to the side and really focus on the experience and wait for it to be appropriate to bring the technology in. So it's never meant to replace anything. It's really meant to help reimagine and provide another way for kids to visualize or connect or synthesize or create. So we're still giving our kids the blocks and the paint and the books and the Play-Doh and the open-ended play toys alongside the technology in different forms. And we want to do this so that kids have options for experiencing, learning, and creating. And we also recognize the power of technology to provide a really authentic audience and the connection that highlights what's happening between people. And in that way, we really give purpose to the kids and we allow them to see their own value as contributors to the learning experience.
Yeah, that's great. And I really like the part where you said, if you're working on a lesson and you realize that, the tech isn't going to really play a part and that it doesn't need to play a part, that you reflect on that and say, okay, let's not try to force this in here, right? To use tech just for tech's sake, but to say that, if this isn't serving that specific purpose that elevates the work, then we don't need it. So
absolutely.
So talk to me about a couple more specific examples. I know you talked about the weather piece already, connecting on that, especially with two very different climates. But what else might you talk about?
So I'm going to dive a little bit more, since with our weather reports, a lot of like our special projects and connections come from those reports because our kids literally get to see into each other's environments. So an opportunity that stemmed somewhat from our weather reports. Our kids are buddied up. So like California kids have a New Jersey partner, New Jersey kids have a California partner. And so with one of our projects, we asked the New Jersey kids, if you were going to play in the snow with your buddy, what would you invite them to do? Show us an action pose for that. And so the kids, of course, with their actual real winter gear, Jessica's kids posed for like snowball fights, making snow angels, ice skating, snowman building. And so we took pictures of their poses. Well, just a side note, when I say we, there was an opportunity where I actually got to go to New Jersey and be with Jessica over there. So I started the project while I was over there with the kids. However, I think Jessica also, if a kiddo was absent or something, she absolutely picked it up. We didn't have to be in the same space. It was just special that I was able to be in the same space. So sure. Anyway, when we took pictures of their poses, we removed the background. So if the classroom is the background, we removed the background so that the kids could have an appropriate snow setting that matched their pose. And since the kids' pictures were taken during playtime, we shared the process with the kids by having their pictures appear on the screen right in front of where they were playing. And so this sparked inspiration for the kids to grab their block people, which is blocks with their faces and bodies on them. And so they were grabbing themselves and their California friends, and they were using snow props like white tinsel to create stories of them playing in the snow. And then later on, when I was back in California, the California kids came and continued to play by looking at the picture of like the invitation that their New Jersey friend had given them, and they responded back with an action shot to play with them. So we highlight more of this experience actually in our Innovating Playbook, and that has supporting activities that the kids engaged in while this project was taking place.
There's two things that jumped out at me as I was reading the book, right? One was the specific examples, right? So there's like a chapter on science that goes into the weather example and talks about different ways that you can not just do that activity, but extend that activity out, which I think is great, and have those actionable things for teachers and for folks who are reading it. And then also, I really appreciated that throughout there was a lot of reflective questions, right? A lot of questions around, around how might you do this in your space? What might you use to accomplish these goals? So I found those to be, really helpful as a reader, because I would sort of pause and think about, all right, what would I do here? And then before I moved on, it helped to sort of cement that, right? When we go through talking about literacy with our students, and we have like text to text and text to self connections, right? Making those text to self connections, I found that to be really helpful. Are there any tools or resources, ed tech tools, resources that you regularly use either when you're collaborating or in your classrooms?
Absolutely. So as teachers, we plan and facilitate learning through Google Apps, especially Google Slides. Like we have weekly slides, and the awesome thing about that, like so many opportunities to show visuals, which is like absolutely key for littles. And especially me, I have a lot of language learners in my class. So they offer a productive space for organization and collaboration. In the classroom, we also use Seesaw to connect with families and for the kids to capture and reflect on their learning. We did mention Flipgrid for weather reporting and other special projects. So there are others, but those are our main tools, and we appreciate the openness that they offer for creation, and using tools consistently helps our kids to build confidence in using them.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? To find a really consistent set of tools that works, especially with younger students, and take advantage of those pieces. And I feel like Flipgrid has been like exploding over the last few years for sure. All right, last one here. What are some, books, blogs, leaders, resources that you regularly use or found helpful in the past as it applies to either play or tech in the classroom with the littles?
Well, I think our biggest source that we turn to that really keeps us grounded and helps us to develop our work is the position statement for technology and interactive media that was developed by the NAAYC and the Fred Rogers Center. It really highlights the expectations and the guidelines for developmentally appropriate use of technology, and it has supporting research in there. So what we try to do is ensure that everything we offer is in alignment with those guiding principles that they present in that statement. So I'm often like pulling that up and rereading it and cross-checking what we're doing just to make sure that it's all in line with what the research shows us about kids in general and about the use of technology. So I think that's like our biggest source that we turn to. And as far as like our sort of the newest thing that we're kind of playing with that we started exploring over the summer is the conceptual play world approach. And it's an approach to STEM instruction with young children in particular. And it was developed by Dr. Marilyn Fleer, and she is in Australia. And she actually has a course that she is offering online that guides you through the stages and the development of a conceptual play world. And it's basically working from pieces of literature for young children and pulling out STEM concepts through play and modeling and scaffolding play and approaching it through like problem solving. So we're really excited to be playing with that idea and what that in particular would look like between our classes. We often, when we find something like that, we think about it like, okay, how would we approach this in each of our kindergartens? But how can we elevate it by bringing our kids together and giving them another experience on top of that? So we're hoping to bring that into our classrooms this school year. And we're excited to kind of like share with our community what that process looks like. One of our biggest things is to continue playing together and always share our process. So like you were talking about with the reflective questions in that book, one of the things Christine and I do a lot is go back to the Google Apps for Littles book and look at those experiences and reimagine them. Like each year we'll take our work and think, okay, how can we approach it differently? What do our kids need this year that they didn't last year? What are our populations showing us? So it's exciting to take the work and continue to reimagine it.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait. Now I have to dive into conceptual play worlds because that
Oh my
sounds
gosh,
like so
there's
much fun.
so many awesome things to explore in there. Yeah, it's a great approach.
Yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time and sharing the resources and also just, the concepts and stories with us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on Focus on K-12 EdTech and the Education Experience. If you enjoyed today's show, please feel free to like, subscribe, and click the little bell so that you get notified whenever we post a new episode. Or reach out to me on Twitter @dconopelco. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time as we focus on K-12.